We are going to begin the funeral service for Mrs. Elise J Varon. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it on the silent mode or turn it completely off at this time. I'd also like to welcome everybody via live stream. On behalf of the family, thank you for attending as well. And services will be conducted by Rabbi Michael Sommer and Jan Heyman, clergy associate from Har Shalom Synagogue. I believe we're going to start with the ancient tradition of cutting of the kriya. So if we could have the family please rise.
Okay.
The biblical act of kriya, the act of tearing, comes from our ancient times, our ancient ancestors. When a loved one died, they would tear their clothing and pour ash upon their head. The act comes forward as a ribbon that a mourner wears on their lapel to let friends and family know that they've had a death in the family and to approach them with love and sympathy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, dayan ha'emet. Blessed are you, our Lord our God, judge of truth.
Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo ezri Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo ezri Ezri me'im Adonai Osei Shamayim va'aretz Ezri me'im Adonai Osei Shamayim va'aretz.
The psalmist wrote in those words long ago, I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming now and forever. Our writings teach us that a woman of strength, beauty, and kindness, who can find? She is more precious than fine gems. Her family loves and depends on her, and so they lack nothing. She does good by them, never harm all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to everyone. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her family entire sing her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. My favorite people don't realize that they do not have permission to check out on me. I will give Elise a pass, but it is hard to put into words my sadness at losing one of my most active congregants, biggest supporters, and active problem solvers. Elise always let me know when our technology wasn't working, as well as when everything was working perfectly. In our sadness, we celebrate a life well lived. Elise Varon lived an incredible life in her 84 years. There is never enough time with those we love most in the world. This moment comes for all of us, a time when we must grieve for our loss while remembering all that was good of our loved one. when we stand together, hoping our memories and stories will give us some comfort in our time of grief. Elise loves spending her life surrounded by friends and family, watching all of us create new life and make the world a better place. Daughter of Anna and Sydney, both of blessed memory, beloved wife of David of blessed memory for over 22 years, and cherished companion of Shelley for over 25 years. Loving mother to Babette, Steve and Phyllis, Lee and Liz, Sarah and John. Loving grandmother of Sophie, David, Georgia, and Sydney. Sister of Susie and Ernie. May we remember Elise in her strength and in her best moments, and for her love of all of us. A poet wrote, "Well, the years have passed, and my eyes have seen so much. Time has flowed slowly and quickly, the eternal river that it is. I've watched so many of you go from young to old, and wondered how you all could grow so, while I remained so young within this old frame, harboring all of my precious memories and thoughts. Gold are the memories of laughter and celebrations. Diamonds are those moments I watched you all flourish and help bring new life into this world. Beyond precious remain those instants surrounded by all of your noise and tussle, as we lived life to the very edge of amazement. You've allowed me to paint my blessings in colors of brightness and merriment. Shed no tears for my life lived so well. Just remember me with a smile at all we shared." The Byrds made popular these ancient words of Ecclesiastes when they sang that there was a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak. And now is the time we speak of Elise's incredible life, as I call up her lifelong friend, Ellie Laser, to speak. Is Ellie here? No? I called you, it's your turn.
I guess it's my turn. I'm Ellie Lasser Necto. I'm the roommate that Elise had from college. Can't hear me? I have a little asthma. I'm sorry, I can't talk very loud. Can you hear me now? Okay. I first met Elise at the Indiana University when we entered Smithwood Wing 4. We were roommates. Elise was from the south side in Chicago, I from the north side. As soon as we met, we were friends. She was so gracious and lovely, and I was so thrilled to have such a wonderful roommate. As Rabbi Summer so eloquently spoke about her, that's exactly the truth about Elise. So we had an immediate friendship that lasted 64 years. I named her Elise Alonso, and I named her Alonso, and she kept that name all our friendship and referred to herself as Alonso. We celebrated our birthdays together all these years, hers in April and mine in October. Elise suffered many hardships, but she rallied through all of them in her life. And she was very kind and accepting in every way. And what I love so much about Elise is that I trusted her. I could trust her, and whatever I said to her was between us, and I felt very close to her because of it. I admire her children who've rallied around her and taken care of her, and she has been a wonderful mother with them. She said, "What would I do without Sarah?" She helped her so much throughout this whole thing. Thank you all, and Shelley too, and his family. Appreciate all your effort. I want you to know that I'm still going to be in touch with Elise. I'm going to talk to her. Maybe she'll answer me. I hope so. So sleep well, my friend, I'll miss you and love you all my life. Thank you for inviting me with this honor to share. Thank you.
I call up Sophie to speak of her grandmother. All the grandkids.
My grandma taught me what it meant to be a woman. Throughout my life, she exemplified strength, grace, and determination in the way she led her life. She ensured that I was empowered to do the things I aspired to do, and that I knew there was no limit to what I could be. Growing up, she would sit with me and read books, building a foundation for me to hope to be as successful as she was. We would go to the Art Institute and have lunch at the rooftop restaurant. I loved to see the art and read about them, and she was there with me as we went time and time again. She shaped me in ways I didn't even realize at the time, fostering my curiosity and enabling me to explore. Last summer, while my family was moving, I lived with her for a little over a month. I realized how similar we were, talking about current events and other things. We pushed each other and talked about how the way we saw the world was so similar yet so different. She built me to be like her, having strong beliefs, but also to be able to question them when necessary. My grandma would always say, "I'm proud to be your grandmother." Although seemingly simple, I knew she meant it. And that it meant she always supported me. In writing this and looking back on all the things we did together, I know even more how true this was. I'm proud to be your granddaughter.
I invite up Lee to speak about his mom.
So I don't know if this needs to be said, but I'm just sitting in the back because I'm getting over the flu and don't want to get anyone sick. Also, I think Steve might still be upset that I told him to bet the over in the Bears game. Try to keep a safe distance. So Sarah and Steve and I, we thought the person who caused my mother the least headache should speak. But that would have been Sarah. And then somewhere in this very long list, maybe in the middle would be Steve. And towards the bottom would be, I guess, Sarah's weird immigrant neighbor who's a 3-time convicted felon. And then depending on the week, I'm above or below. But here we are, so let's see how this goes. We spoke with Rabbi Michael on Saturday. He was asking questions about my mother, Elise, so we could incorporate the information into the ceremony. Tell me about your mother, he said. Sarah had a list of my mother's accomplishments, achievements that she had written down some time ago. And while all true and accurate, that's not how I think about my mother as a list of achievements. She was proud of those accomplishments, and I'm glad the rabbi has an opportunity to share them, but that isn't who my mother is or was. Another question was, what drew her to our father? None of us had that answer. We never asked. Our father was larger than life, and I guess I'm kind of curious now that was brought up, but I just thought he was awesome, and how could she not be attracted to him, and they were a great couple. But again, we provided the list to the rabbi, and many of those compliments are things she's very proud of, and I'm glad that he has the opportunity to speak about them. I remember when my father's mother, my grandma Stella, passed away. I was 12 years old, The last few years were not her best. I did have some fond memories visiting her as a younger child. A lot of them were centric to food that she would make, spanakopita, barekas. She was a cheek pincher. She radiated warmth. My son is 2 now. I hope he retains any memories of his grandma Elise. But if he doesn't, this is what I will tell her. She did everything for her family. My earliest memories were of her taking me to feed a horse that lived in a big open lot not far from our house. We would bring carrots or sugar cubes, and that was a regular spot for us. We had an old piano in the back of the house. She would take out sheet music and play and sing. Education was very important to her. She would read to us on a nightly basis. She would find what interested us and keep supplying it. For me, it was Paddington Bear. I remember the two of us laughing uncontrollably about Paddington's wacky hijinks. I was laughing because Paddington spilled marmalade on someone's suit. She was laughing because I was laughing. Most of all, she wanted us to be happy. She fully endorsed Sarah's pursuit of artistic endeavors. She was the proudest mom with every book Sarah produced. Recently, my wife spotted one of Sarah's books at the public library. She took a photo and sent it to Sarah and my mother. My mother asked if Liz told the librarian that she was related to the artist. No, she did not. Who would pull a librarian aside to say, I'm related to this person? My mother would have. And I'm sure one of her biggest regrets is the following. It both continues my point and will embarrass Sarah, so it's a double win. One of Sarah's books is being made into a feature film. My mother was so proud when she heard that. She told me, I hope I'm around when it comes out. I'm sad for Sarah and for my mother that she won't be. But as we all know, it was not always smooth sailing for Elise. As a 46-year-old mother of 3 teenagers, her larger-than-life husband died of cancer. She was not equipped to be the head of household, having just been widowed. But she did as well as anyone could have. She toughed it out and made it as normal as it could be for all of us, putting herself last. It was important to both my father and her to keep the family united. And I didn't write this down, but in speaking to that, and Steve tells the story better than I do, so maybe ask him. But she was not a fan of the Sephardic congregation where my father was a member, and he'll tell a good story about that. But she paid her dues for 38 years, so she can be buried beside him today. So a few months after my father passed, Steve was back at college. There was a fire at his fraternity house. Thing went up like a tinderbox. Steve arrived home from, let's call it a late night at the library. You're welcome. The house is ablaze. People are jumping out of the windows to save themselves. A high school student who was sleeping in the house was nowhere to be found. Steve runs into the burning building, past first responders. Past first responders who wouldn't enter the building, found the kid asleep, picked him up, and rolled him out the window to safety. Do you know how I know this? Because Steve told me? No. Years later, I'm in a bar, which I was lost and I stopped in for directions. A guy comes up to me and said, "Are you related to Steve Varon?" He was the kid sleeping through the fire. He told me the whole story. He bought me a drink, offered to buy me a drink. I told him, "Steve saved your life. Have you no self-respect? Your life isn't worth 2 or 3 drinks." Steve didn't tell me about that until I asked him. He always did the right thing. He and I were on a softball team in '95, brutally hot summer, won a softball game and had a short break before the final game. He asked me if I wanted to go with him while he grabbed some Gatorade. We drove over to a convenience store. I stayed in the car. He comes out of the store with a case of Gatorade and a 90-year-old woman. He comes around to my door, opens it, hands me the Gatorade, and tells me to get in the back seat. He then puts the elderly woman in the front seat. We drive her home. And when we dropped her off, he turned 180 degrees to me, put his finger in my face, and said, "Don't tell that to anybody. But y'all look like you can keep a secret." Then he went on to work in the family business for 40 years while coaching sports teams and just generally being the perennial father of the year. So back to Elise. 8 years ago, I had a restaurant. Chicago Tribune food writer Kevin Pang had an article listing the best new burgers in the city. I was not included. My mother wrote an email to the writer after the article was published stating that she really likes the burgers at my restaurant and that he should have included us. Kevin politely responded that he featured us in a previous article and that he wouldn't consider us a new restaurant. He then asked, still politely, and because she signed her full name, if she was any relation to me. How do I know this? Because she forwarded me the email chain to let me know that she was advocating for me. What do these random stories have in common? They're all about my mother. They are who she is, Steve's actions, the joy she took in Sarah's career, her badgering a food critic on my behalf. She loved her family. She kept us together. She probably worked harder than she had to at that. She was a tireless advocate for all of us, and she was emotionally invested in all of our successes. Her legacy is in our values, the way we live our lives, the people that we are, the love that we have for each other, and the support we give each other. That is what I will share with my son. And I'm glad, and I'm sorry he won't have the privilege to experience it firsthand. I'll give you a little spritz here. Try and keep you safe.
Elise was born in Chicago on the South Side, where she grew up and graduated from South Shore High School. Since David died so young, Elise immediately handwrote a list of everything she wanted for today and wanted us to know. Under no circumstances was the rabbi who officiated David's funeral to officiate Elise's funeral. This list was written so long ago that her rabbis at the time, at B'nai Torah, that she approved to officiate, have both since retired. She outlived their careers. I am blessed to stand here as Elise's rabbi for over almost 12 years since we first met. Elise's notes on her life. She was president of the Parkside Grammar School graduating class. She graduated from South Shore High School, where she was a member of the National Honor Society and the salutatorian of her graduating class. She attended Indiana University for 3 semesters and was on the dean's list for all 3 semesters. She graduated from Roosevelt University, where she was elected to the Green Key Honor Society. She met David at South Shore Temple's young adult group. After graduating, Elise taught in 3 Chicago public schools for 5 years at Harvard Elementary, Yale Elementary, and Avalon Park Elementary School. In their house, they had a Pride telephone in her and David's home while trying to maintain racially mixed neighborhoods around South Shore Gardens area. David and Elise were original board members of North Suburban JCC, and Elise did the publicity for the JCC. As a longtime member of B'nai Torah, Elise held many positions on the Sisterhood board over the years, including co-president. Elise founded the position of co-president. She also served on the Temple Board of Directors and on the executive board of B'nai Torah, where she was the educational vice president under the congregation's first female president. Elise sat on the board of American Friends of Hebrew University. She sat on the adult programming committee of the Wanger JCC. She raised 3 children whom she dearly loved and whom she was so very proud of. Of course, the 4 of you who she loved dearly. This list was all in her handwriting, fearing that she wouldn't live such a long and beautiful life, losing David so young. She wasn't old enough to be a grandmother then when she wrote her list, so I would add how much she loved being a grandmother. We should all be blessed to have a mom, grandma, wife, companion, aunt, friend, and congregant as loyal and meaningful as Elise. David loved Elise so much that he sold his Corvette to buy her wedding ring. They created an incredible life together and loved bringing you children into the world to complete their home. Elise loved David so much, but created an incredible life in the absence filled with further adventures. She stayed at home raising you children while volunteering and standing up for the things that were important to her. Steve, you remembered when you first moved to Highland Park as a family, your mom owned a couple of commercial ovens she kept in the garage. She would do enameling in the ovens to create individual pieces. Sarah, you spoke of how proud your mom was of your work and how often she told you. She was so supportive of you going to art school. She was always telling the rest of us about your success and publications, even bringing me one of your books you illustrated for my children. You spoke about your mom being such a great mom, always loving and caring for you, even now as an adult. And of course, to Sweet Pea, your dog. Your mom was her second favorite person, and some days maybe even her first favorite. You also spoke about the vacations you all went on and how your mom was so good about signing all of you up for classes you were interested in and supporting you all as you grew up and supporting those interests. After your dad died, you all went to Austria to ski for a family vacation. Elise loved seeing the world. She visited China in the 90s and Japan. She had just loved traveling, visiting the Galapagos Islands and Antarctica. Steve, you remarked how much your mom loved being a grandma and appreciated her coming over to read to your kids all the time. Elise was a big fan of reading. Lee and Liz, your mom loved dancing at your wedding and seeing you bring Sid into the world. It was such an honor to sit with your mom and Shelley at your wedding, celebrating by Zoom with you, all of you, for Sid's baby naming. Sarah, you loved how your mom would always coordinate the Jewish holidays and make sure you were all there to celebrate with her. And Phyllis, you remarked that you remembered Elise's secret brisket recipe, your favorite, always a favorite dish at the holiday events. Elise remained part of her book group for a long time. She loved playing bridge and canasta with her friends. She loved playing on the computer too when she couldn't get a game going, especially during the pandemic. She loved traveling with her friend Norma. They would go to the casinos a lot. They loved going to Las Vegas and would always be greeted and recognized as Mrs. W, since Norma's husband played a lot in Vegas. The two of them loved playing the nickel slots and just spending days enjoying each other's company. After decades as an active member of B'nai Torah, we were honored to count Elise and Shelley as founding members of Har Shalom. Elise and Shelley rarely missed a single program or Shabbat service. They loved attending book club, movie club, Friday services, holiday celebrations. They brought their warmth, sense of humor, and wonderful energy everywhere they went, every time they showed up. Our current president, Jennifer Fisher, wrote that Elise was so kind to me when I first joined Har Shalom. She always engaged me in a conversation. She was interested in what I was doing and remembered what I said one week to the next. She always looked sharp and had beautiful jewelry, which I always complimented her on. And Har Shalom's founding president, Mark Swerdlow, wrote with his wife, Eileen, how much they appreciated Elise's warmth and support all these years. More importantly, Elise never allowed Shelley's flirting with Eileen to bother her. Shelley, you remarked how your close friend, Shelley Schlossman of blessed memory, introduced you to Elise. The two of you traveled all around the world. You were a great combination together, and she loved you even when you wore all your wonderfully outrageously loud summer shirts. In 2006, you traveled to Antarctica, nearly every island in the Caribbean, and you two toured South America, seeing Argentina, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, and so much more. You did so much together, even both getting sick at the same time and trying to keep each other healthy. You remarked how you had such a good life together and how much you already miss her, spending almost a quarter of your lives as partners, companions, teammates, and best friends. You spoke about when you met, you both just had so much in common and loved talking to each other and hanging out. You commented how Elise was always a straight shooter. What she said was what it was. There was no waltzing around the facts. Your lives together was easy because she was so good. You talked about enjoying living in her wake that she left behind, going wherever her flow took you both. You felt it was great following her and being such an important part of her life. You remarked how Elise will be buried next to David, just 4 or 5 steps from where your parents are buried. And whenever you two would go to remember your parents, Elise would, of course, walk over to remember David. Now Elise will join David and your parents in their eternal resting place. In living, we all try to make the world a better place. We try to raise children that better the world, hoping they bring more children into the world. We try to make a difference wherever we go. We are all Elise's legacy. She loved sharing her life with us and sharing so many laughs throughout the years. May we always remember the best of Elise in her strength and health. May her love live on in everyone who knew her, and may her memory always be a blessing, as she was such a blessing in all of our lives. The poet Merritt Malloy wrote, "When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother and sister walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away." We continue reading together in the pamphlets the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We rise for our memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utorim Kezohar Harakia, Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Elise Bat Sidney Va'ana, Shehalcha La'olama, Bal Harachamim, Yastirei HaBeseter, Kanafav Le'olamim, Veitzror Bitzror HaChaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'tanuach B'shalom HaMishkava, V'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Elise Varon, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence and in the shadow of your wings. and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We continue in the pamphlet with the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divra chirotei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'maru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kudusha barichu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'maru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'maru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'maru. Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort to those who are bereaved, as we say together, Amen.
This does conclude the service here at the chapel. The family will receive condolences today beginning at 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. and as well on Tuesday and Wednesday, 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. with a minion service today at 5:30 and Tuesday at 5:30. And the address is 800 Deerfield Road, apartment 308 in Highland Park. That information, the address, is on your folders, as well as our website, so you can refer to that as well. Interment will take place at Waldheim Cemetery in Forest Park. If you're going in procession, the procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please keep in mind a few safety features while in the procession. Keep your bright headlights on at all times. Put your emergency blinkers on. Attach the orange funeral sticker to the passenger portion of your front windshield, and we'll also attach a flag to the roof of your car, and please stay as close as safety permits to the car in front of you. The following people have been selected to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, if you'll please come forward. Sophie Varon, David Varon, Georgia Varon, Debbie Ernest, John Ernest, and Scott Smaller. At this time, I would ask that everyone please rise as the clergy and the family are escorted from the chapel. Pallbearers, we're going to
Oseh